Absolutely. Well, first of all, so I guess sounds like I got a workable microphone going on. I wasn't sure whether I needed the preacher's mic or if the,
You're
or if the
good.
politician
You're good.
mic was going
You're
to
good.
work okay. Okay,
You
beautiful.
good.
So, living room conversations is a wonderful tool and a wonderful resource for people who want to go deep on a certain subject. And similarly, the organization that I work with and represent, Better Angels, we specialize in a number of different things. Part of what we're best known for is something that we call a red and blue workshop. And what that basically is we take small groups of folks from the right, conservative, Republican leaning, small groups from the left, progressive or Democratic leaning, red and blue, as we say in-house. We bring them together not so much to argue or debate politics, but to speak from the vantage point of their own personal lived or life experience in terms of why they see politics the way that they do, right? So not fighting an argument, inviting understanding. So we're literally applying marriage counseling practices to political dialogues, which makes sense for a nation that a lot of times seems like it's on the verge of divorce. And that's important because at the end of the day, the thing that allows us to actually, to the extent that it does work, and we could all spend a lot of time talking about the ways in which our democracy and our government don't work the way we want it to, right? But to the extent that it does work and has worked and has provided opportunity for folks from across the spectrum of American life, it's been because the American people have decided to take care of each other and to transcend their differences in order to do that. And folks of faith, folks who are locked into the legacy of the civil rights movement and the social justice movement, and people who believe in the power of love as a transformational force in human life have proved that in every generation. But you can't do that unless, as Jones said, you see the divinity in your neighbor, whether you agree with them or not. So we provide the opportunities and the resources for people to do just that.
So we have to see what the issue is. I love that answer.
We have to see each other in our collective
And that's
space.
the thing. We have to see each other. We have to come together. And that question is, though, we're asking as we're having the conversation, how? Because, again, aren't we ultimately trying to get to love? Isn't love the healing of everything? So how?
John, go ahead, John.
Yeah.
The mic that works.
The mic that works, right? The thing about leaning in, to finding a point of connection with people with whom you might not think that you have a whole lot in common, people who maybe you might even justifiably look at as advocating for systems of oppression that make your life more difficult, is that it requires you to take on something that's really heroic in nature, which is to say precisely what Christ prescribed, which is loving your enemy, ultimately. And the cynicism that people have about our ability to come together in the kinds of dialogues that establish that connection sometimes mask the fact that it's not really apathy, there's a level of fear to it. Because loving your enemy or somebody who might be your enemy is not hard. I mean, is hard and it ain't never supposed to be easy. Let me tell you this because you said something that sparked a story in my mind for me real quick. The sister who opened our event today, with her glorious rap and her glorious lyrics. And I would have come out here just to hear that, frankly, Bishop.
Me too.
That was a surprise. I didn't realize that, gift I didn't realize I was going to get. But she was speaking from a place of brokenness, which is where we are all coming from in so many different ways. Not just black, right? Not just Dallas, but certainly here in this community, you guys have stories. Look, I'm from LA. And me being here with y'all, even though I'm different, even though I come from a different background, there's a spirit that makes me feel like I'm home. And that's what we want to spread out wide. The reason I mention that is this. I'm going to tell you guys something real quick. And I know I'm going to tell you about my own brokenness. Not my own brokenness, but a brokenness I share with someone who's suffered more. My cousin, Jasmine. I got a cousin in Los Angeles, where I'm from, who was shot at a house party a few weeks ago. She wouldn't mind me telling you this story, so that's the only reason I'm sharing it. Paralyzed from the waist down, caught in the crossfire of somebody else's hate, a situation that had nothing to do with her. And so we're all here getting caught in the crossfire of other people's hate to a degree. And it makes us hateful in turn, so that virus spreads. But my cousin, she is not hateful. And even though some of the doctors say that she might not walk again, by the glory of God, I know that my God is powerful enough to give sight to the blind, to heal those who are sick. He is powerful enough to keep those from walking, to get them to walk again. So I don't have any doubt about that. But she told me a story that made me believe even more in this mission. I didn't know that my little chocolate cousin Jasmine, when she was playing basketball at UC Santa Barbara, was traveling the country, meeting people I'd never get a chance to know. I didn't know that. I didn't know she'd gone to more states in this country than I have, and it's my job to go around talking to folks at different points of view. She told me that she spent a week with a family in North Dakota who happened to be the family of the boyfriend of a friend of hers from college. So she gets pulled away to a vacation in a place where everybody's favorite thing to do is ice fishing, a place where the nearest neighbors live miles away, and the people you do see walking around are walking around with MAGA hats on. And she told me that she spent 8 hours in a tent where they carved out a circle of ice. I don't know how much ice fishing y'all do in Dallas. This is pretty unfamiliar to me.
We don't get ice in Dallas, barely.
My point exactly. They carved out a circle of ice, and the way ice fishing works is you wait for a fish to swim through that hole, you got a big spear, and you chuck it, right? And you spear the fish, you pull it out. She said that in 8 hours, all of 15 fish swam by. That's about 2 fish an hour. So they had a lot of time to just sit and talk with these folks who are, not trying to be rude, but I guess you could basically say rural rednecks who didn't know nothing about where she came from. And at a certain point, the father looked at her and said, "So tell me, what does Black Lives Matter mean?" And she looked at him and she said, "It's our way of letting people know that our lives matter. And because our lives matter, we have a right to be heard." And he nodded his head and he accepted that. And that's all they did. That's all they did. Just that one moment of connection. But in that moment, because he got to see her as a human being, he came to understand that there was some humanity in this little chocolate girl from inner city LA that he would not have had a chance to appreciate before, would he not have had the chance to know her. By the way, the very first fish that swam by in that hole, my cousin Jasmine speared it and said it was the best moment of her life. Cleanest spear thrust any of these North Dakota folks had ever seen, right? I say that simply to say this. It's hard to put yourself in a situation where you feel like you have to take the moral burden of understanding somebody who's actually doing harm to you or supporting an agenda you think is doing harm to do. But to do that is to wield the glory and the power and the grace and the possibility that comes with loving God.
Good.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
That's,
I love that because of the connection. You know,
Yeah.
that one moment they connected, him asking that question. And here it is, someone, for us, we absolutely know that Black Lives Matter and what that means. But for him to ask her that and say, what does that mean? It's just like he doesn't know. And sometimes we take for granted that people know things that the other culture knows about the other culture, and that's just not it.
We all want to get to the place of healing and love, where we respect each other, we appreciate each other, we affirm each other, and we move together as one nation.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate your story, my brother. And all I really want to leave folks with is this. Martin Luther King Jr. said that the goal of the nonviolent movement was not to humiliate the opponent, but ultimately to win him over and to win his friendship. That to build up the beloved community, we needed to embrace a spirit of reconciliation. And I think that the tension that each and every one of us face is the tension between this idea that on the one hand, I want to love my neighbor, I even want to go so far as to love my enemy, but on the other hand, I have to be able to speak the truth. And I'm here to tell you there's no contradiction, right? Because in fact, if I love you, I will tell you the truth. But we can tell the truth from a place of judgment and condemnation, or we can tell the truth from a place of grace and of love. And if we do the latter thing, then love has power, and love has power.
Man,
That's awesome.
Yes.
Can you give them another round of applause?